You're listening to the Station 71 podcast with your host, Mario,
Beth,
Brian,
and Kirsten.
So we're going to do a couple different segments this week. We're going to do a tribute to Marty Sklar. We're going to do some introductions for each of the hosts, and we're going to do a little game of Attraction Superlatives. So Kirsten, I believe you had some stuff about Marty that you wanted to talk about?
Yes. So Imagineering is my favorite thing about Disney. I'm obsessed with it, and Marty Sklar is definitely like my idol as far as Imagineering goes. So I was really brokenhearted to hear that he passed away. I personally always planned and figured that I would get to meet him at the 50th in Walt Disney World, but that won't be happening. So Marty was born in New Jersey, and he moved to California as a child, and he went to UCLA. And how he ended up with Disney was someone recommended him to Card Walker. And so Card called his frat house to bring him in for an interview when he was still in school. And he thought it was a joke because he thought nobody would actually be named Card, and he thought his frat brothers were playing a trick on him. So he didn't return the call. And luckily, Card called back and got a hold of him. So he started working for Disney, I believe the summer before he graduated. He started out writing the Disneyland News, which was a tabloid-style paper that they sold at Disneyland when it opened for 10 cents. One of the interesting things about Marty is he was essentially Walt's ghostwriter. That's what he started out doing, was writing. So many of the Disney quotes, that we all know and love by Walt Disney, Marty wrote those, and he never got credit, but he was fine with that. That's another thing about him. He always seemed like he was more excited about bringing out the talents of others and showcasing them instead of taking credit for himself. A few things he worked on way back when was It's a Small World and Carousel of Progress for the World's Fair. Side note, why don't they have World's Fairs anymore? Does anybody know that? Was that like the last one?
I am not sure.
I think that they should bring that back.
I agree.
He also worked on Enchanted Tiki Room and Space Mountain, and he actually wrote the statement that Roy gave after Walt died. It's one of my favorite pieces of writing, I think. He became head of Imagineering in 1974 and had a huge role in the planning and building of Epcot. It was his first major project as the head, and it's the first project that Walt was really not involved in. We all know that Walt really had a lot of plans for Magic Kingdom by the time he died, and they kind of had a blueprint for that with Disneyland. But taking Epcot from an actual, working city to a theme park was a big challenge. He was the only person to attend all 11 park openings all over the world, and he retired in 2009 and got his window on Main Street on July 17th, which is Disneyland's birthday. And like I said earlier, what I loved about Marty is he gave so many speeches. He was always doing so much. He had the Ryman after Herb Ryman Foundation scholarship for people who wanted to be in the arts, like students that wanted to be in the arts. He loved to meet other people. It's been amazing. I think we talked about it. It's like after he died, how many people have come forward and said, I got to meet him here, I took a picture with him here, And a lot of, I know he's not a real celebrity, but, you'd think a lot of people would be tired of that, but I never heard, any stories of him being rude or short with anyone. He seemed like he really loved it. If you're interested in Marty, you should read 2 of his books. He has Dream It, Do It, which is his biography. And then he also wrote One Little Spark, which is kind of a story about Imagineering. The beginning is different, his rules for Imagineering, and then the second half is advice for people who would like to get into Imagineering. We'll put the links in the show notes. And the last thing I'll say is, whenever Walt died, he wrote stuff about Walt that I think really foretold his own role that would come to pass. And my favorite quote ever is, "The world will always be a better place because Walt Disney was its master showman." And I think that applies to Marty too.
I think you did a really good job of summing that up. One of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on is it's amazing to see that so many people after his passing kind of came out, and even if they hadn't met him, you could tell that this is a huge, huge devastating thing to the community as a whole. His fingerprints are all over the park, and everyone that was talking about it on Instagram, on Twitter, pretty much anywhere, was just saying that. And, you know, even if you had, like, the people that had met him were very, like, they had a lot of good things to say. And that's such a nice thing to hear in someone's passing, is that all these people were coming together and saying, you know, this is very devastating, and he was such a good man.
Yeah, we've lost the last real link to Disney, to Walt Disney. You know, he was one of the last people still involved with the parks who worked directly with Disney, you know, very closely.
Yeah. He's definitely had, like I said, his fingerprints are everywhere. A lot of the classic attractions either he worked on or, you know, had some involvement in. So to say that he was essentially like losing Disney all over again is a very good, like a very valid point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should probably say like what some of our favorite attractions are that he's worked on, I think. Because, you know, one of my like absolute musts every trip is Carousel of Progress. Just something that I've always done, something I love to do. And I know he worked on that and Tiki Room. So both of those are like go-tos for me.
Yeah, I'll say, the Tiki Room's definitely one of my favorites, and one of, the attractions that really, really started animatronics at Disney. And, that's one of my favorite things, is to go and see how the animatronics progress through the years. So for him to have been such a, an integral part of the first animatronics is, it's a pretty huge milestone.
For me, it's A Small World. I personally don't love It's a Small World, but I've kind of started to love it. It was one of my mother-in-law's favorite rides, so every time we go to Magic Kingdom, it's a tradition. We do Dumbo, Teacup, Small World in that order when we start our day.
I personally love the Enchanted Tiki Room. That's one of my favorite like classic attractions. Just the attention to detail in that attraction is amazing, and it's so cute and like lighthearted and entertaining, and I think it really epitomizes like classic Disney.
But it's a very sad thing to lose someone so pivotal to this company that we all love. And he certainly will not be forgotten in any of his work that he's done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to a happier subject and introduce ourselves.
Okay, so we kind of figured we've done 3 episodes now, and we haven't said a single word about who these voices are that are coming to you through your speakers. So we are going to introduce ourselves this week. Start us off, and then we'll go in the order that we introduce ourselves in the introduction of the show. My name is Mario. I'm 24. I started this podcast. I'm from New Jersey, and I started going to Disney back in 2005. We were going with my mom's whole family. That's about 16 people for one whole trip. Planning and coordinating was a very big task, if you can't imagine. Outside of Disney, I'm a hobbyist photographer. I'm by no means good enough to consider myself a photographer on any level, but taking pictures is something I absolutely enjoy doing, and something that actually carries over to the parks as well. My favorite attraction, to bring it back around, is the Haunted Mansion. I love the theming of the ride. I love everything about it, from the music to like all the different scenes and stuff. It's just, if I don't go on the Haunted Mansion when I'm in Disney, it's not a good trip to Disney. So I'll pass it off to Beth.
Yes, so my name is Beth. I'm 27. I'm from South Carolina. I went to Disney a couple times as a kid, but really started going regularly in 2011 when I was about 21 years old. And ever since then, I've been at least once a year, usually twice, sometimes 3 times. This year will be 4 times. So it's just gotten progressively more and more as the years go on. But outside of Disney, my biggest passion is wildlife conservation. So obviously that makes my favorite park, Animal Kingdom. I'm a volunteer docent at my local zoo. So I volunteer in the education department and educate all the guests about different topics and different species. And I handle the animal ambassadors in our collection. My favorite attraction is also Haunted Mansion. And it is very, very closely followed by Flight of Passage. And honestly, if Haunted Mansion wasn't such a classic, it might have been overtaken by Flight of Passage just because of how amazing that ride is. But Haunted Mansion it is because that's my classic Disney ride. That's what, really tugs at my heartstrings and makes me feel like I'm at home.
Can I just say that like half of the reason that we all started this podcast was because we all love Haunted Mansion? Anyway.
All right, guys. I'm Brian. I am 24, and I'm originally from Hampton, Georgia. That's a city about 45 minutes south of Atlanta that you have probably never heard of. But yeah, I've been going to Disney pretty much my entire life. I have a brother who's 3 years older than me, so as soon as I was born, my parents started taking us on annual trips to Disney. So I went pretty much once a year from the time I was born until I was about 13. And then we went on, not quite annual trips, but we went on more trips since then. And let's see, when I graduated college last year, I was lucky enough to find a job on the Space Coast in Florida. And so now I am a local pass holder. So yeah, but I guess growing up, Disney was always just, it was like the pinnacle of the year to be able to go and go on vacation, just get pulled into the theming that they do, really immerse yourself in the world of your favorite stories, your favorite movies growing up. And, it just has so much to offer. And it was, always just awe-inspiring as a kid. And it really is just, that passion never left. And it's I just really enjoy it. So yeah, I'm gonna continue on with the favorite attraction theme and go with Haunted Mansion 2. There's just I could sit here and I feel like we could all do at least one episode just talking solely about the Haunted Mansion, just how great it is. Which
definitely,
yeah, I feel like it's going to come up somewhat in the superlative episode. But anyways. Let's see, outside of Disney, I enjoy playing guitar and working on a project car that I have. But, yep, that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. My name is Kirsten. I'm from Texas. I've lived all over in the past 15 years, but now I'm back in Texas, thank goodness. I'm 28. I went to Disney for my first time when I was in 9th grade. I went with my family and then my best friend's family. They all liked it, but I loved it. My dad did not like it enough to take me back. So I started going my senior year of high school with my boyfriend's family, who's now my husband. And since then, I've gone pretty much every year. I did the Disney College Program, Spring Advantage 2011. I was a vacation planner. It was like the best experience ever. If anybody's listening to that and thinking about if they should do it, you definitely should. It's amazing. Just know that you're going to work really hard. I had the best roommates ever. Some of them are still my best friends. One was a bridesmaid at my wedding. For me, it's like just a really special thing for me and my husband. He proposed there. We both love it. And now it's really nostalgic for us since his mother passed away, and she loved it so much. We took pregnancy announcement photos there. We actually named our son Oliver Elias after Roy Oliver and Walter Elias, but we call him Eli. I moved around a lot as a kid, so I don't really have a home like that feels, like roots. I don't have a childhood home I go back to. So for me, Disney is my home. I picked a favorite ride and a favorite attraction because I'm a cheater. My favorite ride is Tower of Terror. I'm gonna break the mold. I do love Haunted Mansion though. And my favorite attraction is One Man's Dream. And then outside of Disney, I read a lot, and something really weird about myself is I'm like obsessed with Cher. I've seen her 11 times. I have internet Cher friends from like 2004. I'm going on a Cher cruise next year. So that's like another huge part of my life. Cher and Disney. Those are my things. And that's all I got.
That's awesome.
So last week we had to ban Brian because he doesn't like the Great Movie Ride. And now we're going to have to kick you off because you don't like the Haunted Mansion.
I love the Haunted Mansion. I just like Tower more. Actually, the best thing I ever did when I was on my college program was a backstage tour of Haunted Mansion. It was amazing.
Oh
That's what made me love it.
I want that.
That sounds incredible.
It was. I'll have to tell you like all of the secrets and stuff that I learned. I should have like written them all down because I know I'm slowly starting to forget things.
Oh no. So we are going to have to do an episode on that. And then you'll like immortalize it in audio form.
Mm-hmm.
So do we want to move on to our superlatives game? Because that's the super fun thing that I'm really excited for.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go.
So we came up with a couple different like superlative things to vote on this week. Different things that we all kind of picked, and then we picked our top 8 out of that list. And then we're all going to go through them. None of us know what the others have picked. And it's going to be an interesting ride. So our first one on this list was attraction most likely to break down. Who picked this one? I can't remember who picked this one out of the list.
It wasn't me.
Maybe it was me,
I think
and
so.
I'm forgetting. It probably was. So I picked Splash Mountain because I have seen that thing break down more than any ride at like any time. I feel like every time I go there, it's at least down once. So that's my defense for that one.
I had a really hard time with this one because I honestly haven't really experienced a whole lot of breakdowns on my trips. And unfortunately, I would say the ride that I have experienced the most has been Haunted Mansion. But I think it's mostly because people are like sticking their hands out. So I wouldn't really call it a breakdown. Yeah, so like I don't think that really counts as breaking down because people are just like reaching their hands out and trying to touch stuff, and the cameras see it and they stop it. So I do agree with Splash Mountain though, because while I have not been on it while it's been breaking down or whatever, I've definitely been in line when it has and been really annoyed at how long the wait was.
So before we move away from that, because I want to tell this story. Last trip we were on in October, we did the Haunted Mansion, and like this was the third time riding it, and we're going backwards down the scene where you come out of the attic into the graveyard, and I looked at my girlfriend, and she's like, she doesn't like the whole backwards thing, so I looked at her and I went, how bad would it stink if the ride broke down here? And all of a sudden the doom buggies come to a halt.
Oh my
and she just looked at me like, I hate you. I can't believe you just did that.
That's hilarious.
So I had a tough time with that too. I was like, okay, Haunted Mansion, I've been on that when that's broken down, but I've seen Splash Mountain break down so many times. So, Brian?
So for my pick, I was trying to think, I didn't want to be unfair because a lot of what I was thinking of is rides that like get closed because it's raining or lightning or something like that. So I was trying to think of one that I thought got, that broke down fairly often that wasn't because of weather, and I went with Space Mountain. And so I will say that maybe it doesn't break down that much, but it seems like when it does break down, you hear about it. There's so many videos of people when they've gotten stuck on it and they turn all the lights on. So I think it's just kind of one of those things that you hear about a lot, maybe, and that's what I thought of. A side note, I was actually on it many years ago when it broke down and all the lights were turned on and everything, but it's pretty cool. They after waiting for 15 or 20 minutes, they finally got it moving, took us off, and gave us a not even a fast pass. They just walked us back to the front of the line and let us get right back on it and ride it again. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. I've never been on that while it broke down, but every time someone posts pictures of like lights on Space Mountain, I get the worst anxiety. It just looks like a metal death trap in there.
Yeah, I would have really liked for it to have broken down at the beginning and then gotten to ride it with the lights on, but it actually broke down at the very end. So we were just sitting like 30 feet from getting off the ride and just having to wait. But yeah.
Okay, for me, I also chose Haunted Mansion because I feel like it counts as a real breakdown because it totally ruins my suspension of disbelief. And it happens all the time. I feel like every time I ride that, they stop you multiple times. And it's just so annoying. So it's not like a huge problem where it's broken down for hours and hours, but it's so annoying. It counts to me.
Yeah, it really does like suspend your disbelief when the voice comes on and it's like, the doom buggies will resume moving momentarily.
I couldn't remember
or whatever.
what it was. I was going to say it too. But
I thought of the same thing. I was like, oh no, what is it? So our next one was best place to take a nap or a break. I don't know if this is still valid because of the closures, so I picked two. I put Ellen's Energy Adventure as my first choice. Every time we would go on that with my whole family, my uncle would call it nap time with Ellen, so it's kind of like a running joke in our family. It's just the longest ride in the air conditioning, and like the seats are so big you can kind of like stretch out as much as you want to. It's just the perfect place to just sit and take a break. My second choice, as much as I love it, I had to put Carousel of Progress because that is also a long ride in the air conditioning, and you can just sit in your seat and relax.
Yeah, Carousel of Progress is my I'm taking my shoes off ride. And I hate to be that person, but after a long day at the park, it feels so nice. But for mine, I really like the Hall of Presidents for this reason. I don't really get too much into politics. Like, I have political opinions, but it's not like the most interesting thing to me. I doubt that it's anyone's favorite attraction, really, but I think that one's another good place to take your shoes off and take a little break. I also like the Kid Cot stations at Epcot because they're off to the side, they're in the shade, and it's, in my experience, pretty rare that people actually sit and color their Duffy Bears or Perry the Platypus things. So it's kind of just a little secluded area for you to lay on a table and lay your head down.
So, closely related to that, my choice was the American Adventure at the American Pavilion at Epcot. I think it's got a lot of these same things. You're in a dark theater with comfy seats, and it's just, very easy to get lulled to sleep. Not only that, you're also exactly halfway around World Showcase, so you're either probably tired at this point, or you're going to be tired having to walk the other half of the way back around. So, it's great. You just go ahead and take a nap, get yourself well rested for the rest of the trip, and you're good to go.
I really thought you were going to say you're halfway around World Showcase, so you're probably drunk.
Oh no.
That too.
Well, hang on. Do we have a separate one for best place to take a nap and best place to pass out? Are those two different?
So I went way off track with this one. This only applies if you're in Magic Kingdom, but to me, the Contemporary Convention Center, they have benches in the hallway, so we'll just walk over, take the monorail over, and just lay down on a bench and take a nap. I've gotten some weird looks from people who are actually at conventions walking by, but I really don't care.
I've never been there.
I didn't even think to go resort with that one.
I mean, it's nice. I've fallen asleep, and there's you don't wake up and have to exit the ride and then be back in the sun. You can just sleep until you want to go do something else.
That's true. I also, side note, originally I had a hard time with this one because there's so many good places to just sit. I also had Muppet Vision on there, because I feel like that's also a very, like, small, air-conditioned room. There's stuff going on around you, so, like, that's why I didn't pick it. But I've seen a lot of people fall asleep in there. And, I mean, compared to, like, the other 3D movie attractions, I feel like that's, like, the lesser of the in-your-face stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I didn't want anyone to kill me for that, because I know we're all big Muppet Vision fans. So the next one was Best Ride Theme Execution. Well, we talked about my choice last week, so I'm just going to go out and say it, Tower of Terror for me. The way that we described it last week with as soon as you walk up, like, the grounds look really nice. Obviously, there's, like, the big cracks in the paint that you can see right away, but everything else, like the trees and all that stuff, it looks well kept, and then the closer you get, you start to notice the decay, and then as soon as you're inside the lobby, you know something's off. I think the theming of the queue area and then the transition into Tower of Terror, just that was what did it for me, for my choice at least.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. I probably have to go with Flight of Passage, just because everything about it is so insanely detailed, and you know, they made this queue to be like half a mile long or something crazy like that. It holds obviously like a 5-hour wait, and there's something to look at in almost every part that you stand in. And especially when you know, I know most people have probably, if they haven't already experienced it, they've watched videos, so, but I won't try to spoil anything. But once you get inside, it's amazing. You know, they have all these crazy effects, and it just really puts you in like Pandora or like the Avatar movie. And the ride itself is amazing too. All of the different effects that they have. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for those who are still bravely holding out and not watching point of view videos, but it's really, really well executed. And like I said, it's hard for me to even compare another ride to Haunted Mansion as my favorite, but it's a very, very close second.
Yeah, Flight of Passage, like Beth said, for those of you who haven't gone on it, it is absolutely incredible, start to finish theming. Definitely, I would say by far the best theming of any Disney attraction built within the last 10 years. But for me, my number one, gonna have to stick with Haunted Mansion. What I like about it so much really is that I think when Disney really nails a ride, that the one thing that they get right is realizing that the theming doesn't start when you get on the attraction or when you're in the queue. It really is about connecting it with the land that the attraction is based in. And I think Haunted Mansion does such a great job at this. When you're in Liberty Square, it is that creepy haunted house at the end of the street. You know, you walk down, you pass Memento Mori, and then once you get into the queue when you're going through the graveyard, it builds up that goofy yet kind of creepy, sinister feeling that Haunted Mansion does. And then, I mean, the execution of the theming throughout the ride is just absolutely top notch, classic Disney, and is, you know, in my opinion, the absolute best job that Disney's ever done at picking a theme and just nailing it, absolute start to finish.
Y'all are killing me with the Flight of Passage. I am the person, I have not been on it, and I have not watched a video, mainly because I just haven't thought about it, but I might now. I don't know. I might have to do it now.
Not to deter you from watching a video, but there's like, I've watched point of view videos of it, and it's not at all the same. Like, it's still cool, but it's like cool in a sense of I've already been on this, so I'm just kind of reliving it. My personal opinion is that you should not watch a video, and you should just ride it for the first time.
Yep. I went into it having no idea even really what the attraction was going to be about. Obviously, I knew something was, you know, you were flying. It's kind of the name. But as far as watching any videos, you know, I had to keep myself from doing it, and I'm really glad I did, because going into it just completely, you know, blindfolded basically, it was incredible.
Well, I chose Tower of Terror, because that's why I love that ride. I remember the first time I rode it in 9th grade. I'm the biggest chicken ever, side note, so I was legitimately freaked out. The park was super dead that day, so we actually just kept going back, and finally after like the 5th time, I told my family, okay, I'm too scared, I can't do this again. So I love it. I mean, I actually enjoy when there's kind of a line, because you get to walk outside, and I think that's sort of an overlooked part. And just going through the queue, it really does feel like a hotel. Going into the library, watching the video, I love how the window lights up when the lightning strikes. I mean, they just never miss a beat with that one. So,
Yeah.
Side note, the last time we did Tower of Terror, I actually like hung out and slowed down the queue because I wanted to look at everything and take pictures of everything, to the point that I was letting people go around us because it's just that good of theming, I think. So next up we had Best Scent. I feel like all of my answers were really weird, but I had the Pirates of the Caribbean, like the attraction overall. I don't know what that smell is. It might just be like
Dirty
the
water.
musty air. Right. But I feel like that also is like part of this, like it builds the immersion into that ride. What?
I would just to say, I forget what it's called, but the reason the water smells that way, I saw a video on this, was that...
Bromine.
Is that what it is? I was going to say, it's some chemical that they use. They don't use...
chlorine.
Oh God, what are they putting...
Instead of using chlorine,
Yeah, instead of chlorine, they use... What did you say, bromine it is?
Bromine.
Okay, so...
But yeah, I feel like that just adds to the like immersion because it's just that musty smell. And I don't know, like that's one of those weird scents that's like not something you would think of as like the best scent, but it's totally one of those things that like I smell it and I'm like, yeah, this is Pirates of the
Maybe we
Caribbean.
can find you a bromine scented candle.
Okay, so I know I've been like ranting and raving, and I'm going to do a plug here, but the Spireside candles that I ordered back when they were Anthology candles, they have a Pirates of the Caribbean one that's like, it smells nothing like the attraction, but I was really happy with that one. It smells like, it said like cannonball smoke or something, and like something really weird, but I was really disappointed that it didn't actually smell like the
Yeah,
ride.
that's why I'm kind of nervous to order some. I know I want to order a couple, but I want...
There's a couple that are like really good. They just don't actually smell like the rides themselves. And if you tell yourself, okay, this is just inspired by it, then it's like, okay. There's 2 like sample packs that they do now that we're doing like a little ad for them. But the attractions ones are the ones that are like inspired by, and then there's the park pack one. That's like the Main Street Confectionery, the bakery. I think it's like Dole Whip and Churro. So it's like those, and they actually smell like the places. So if you're looking for something that smells specifically like that, that would be what I would
I
recommend.
have to try that.
Yep.
So similarly, another plug, I guess, for a product. I don't know this from experience. This is just because of me being a huge Disney nerd. I have a list of stuff that is supposed to smell like this or that or whatever that I want to like. You know, if I ever want to smell something when I'm not at Disney World, I can go give it a try. And through my research, there's apparently a perfume, and it's literally the name of it is Dark Ride.
Oh no.
And it's supposed to, and I've read a lot of people say that it smells very, very similarly to the water in Pirates. So I can send you the link to put in the show notes if anybody is interested. But just if you're ever feeling like you want to smell like Pirates, might be the perfume for you to invest in. But as much as I love the smell of the water rides, my hands down favorite scent at Walt Disney World is the confectionery. I have been trying so hard for so long to find something, anything that reminds me of that smell that I can take home with me, and it's just completely unbeatable in my opinion. Like, I can't find anything that it's remotely close. So whenever I go walking down Main Street, I take direct line, like a beeline straight to the confectionery just to walk through it, and I just take deep inhalations and just soak in that favorite scent of mine. But it's also very closely followed by Rome Burning in Spaceship Earth.
That's a good one.
Yep. Good one. Mine, I'm going to say, is the scent of the lobby at the Polynesian. Polynesian's by far my favorite resort, and I don't even know if it's that I enjoy the smell that much when you walk in, or if it's just like I smell it and I think, oh, I'm here, I'm at the Polynesian, and I get excited. But either way, favorite scent, Polynesian lobby.
This was so hard for me. I had so many like close runners up. Fill Our Magic, the old Soren. I have not ridden the new Soren, so I don't know what it smells like. But I had to go with the Perfume Laila, the Essence of Norway. It's like crack to me. I am obsessed with that smell. I don't even go to Norway that much because I don't like the food there. I know everybody else is obsessed with school bread and stuff. But I just would go into the gift shop and smell the perfume. And now you can buy it on Amazon, which is really exciting. So I don't have to wait and worry if I'm going to run out of it because I wear it pretty much every day.
This is one that I've never smelled, so I definitely need to give it a try.
Oh my God, it's amazing. I actually, when I was working in retail doing my master's, a lady came into the store and I was like, this is weird, but are you wearing this perfume like Laila, the Essence of Norway? And she's like, yes. I knew it. She probably thought I was crazy, but that's okay.
I feel like this was a really hard one because there are so many good scents that are like unique to Walt Disney World. So I had a lot of trouble with that, and Fill Our Magic was definitely on my list too. I thought I was a little weird for picking that because there's so many different scents.
But it's so interesting when you start something like that, how much smells really do. You really do associate smells with places and memories.
Right. I tried to go with like the first one that popped into my mind because I always felt like that was like the one that really stuck out to me. But then after I listed, I'd be like, okay, there's like 5 or 6 other ones I really want to go with.
Yeah.
The next one was the most unique experience / attraction. I really struggled with this one because everything that I've seen says that Flight of Passage is the most unique attraction that is on property, but I haven't done it yet. And I've held off very, very hard because I don't want to ruin it for me. So I went with something similar. I went with Soarin'. It's not entirely super unique, but I think the way that the original one was done, and I'm going to go with the original Soarin', not the new one, because I'm not a huge fan of that. But the original attraction, and especially when it came out, it was pretty like unique to that park. Plus, that's one of those rides that's, I think, super immersive, but you don't really do too much. So I thought that was pretty cool too. Like, obviously, you just sit in the little glider, and then the screen changes around you, and they spray smells in your face. But I don't know. I thought that was a super unique attraction.
I would agree with that. I think Soarin' is really unique. I am going to be that person that says that Flight of Passage is the most unique, though, because I feel like it's like Soarin' on crack.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Again, no spoilers, but it does do a lot of the same things as Soarin' does, but it has, I feel, so many more, like, there's so much more to it than in Soarin'. Although I love Soarin' a lot. The old one, again, like you said, I'm not a huge fan of Soarin' Around the World, but yeah, I would say Flight of Passage would be my pick.
I gotta say, like, real quick, while we're on the Soarin' hate right now, when I rode the new one of the things that really super bugged me, and I don't know, because, like, it was, when I rode the new one, it was just me and my girlfriend, and I asked her, I was like, did you notice this? And she didn't. I want to see if anyone else did.
I haven't ridden it, so y'all are making me sad to ride in October.
Sorry. But one of the things that I really noticed that drove me crazy, because, like, it being someone that, like, looks at photography and is, like, very interested in photography, when I see things like this, it almost, like, annoys me a little bit. But there were a lot of scenes that there should have been straight lines, and they were curved. just because of, I guess, the camera they shot it with, or like the way that the screen curves. But it was like way worse than the original one.
Yep.
And then the CGI is a little like in your face.
Oh,
but
man.
sorry, we just like totally knocked that down. Anyway, Brian.
Let's see. For my most unique experience / attraction, I went with Living with the Land at Epcot. I think it's really cool because I would say, aside from like Kilimanjaro safaris at Animal Kingdom, it's one of the few things at Disney where you're actually going and you're seeing real live, in this case it's plants, but I think it fits in so well at Epcot, at the Land Pavilion, and it really is different. You get to see, granted they are old now, but you get to see the animatronics at the beginning, and then you get to see the nature and science aspect of it when you go into the actual greenhouse of it. It's just really cool. I know a lot of people overlook it probably when they go to Epcot, but I would say definitely, if anyone's planning a trip, take time, go see Living with the Land. It is very, very cool.
I also went with Living with the Land. My husband told me it's just a boat ride, but it's really not. It's so much more than that. I think Walt would have loved it because one of his sayings was, give them a little treatment, which is like a learning experience, and a lot of treat. And I feel like this really does that because you're on a boat ride, you're in a theme park, but you go through the greenhouses, you see people doing research, and they're actually doing it, and the plants are actually growing, and it's something that changes periodically. They grow different things, and if you do the behind the scenes tour, you get to try different things, I've heard. So I think it's something that Walt would have really loved. And it's definitely, I've never seen another theme park that has an attraction like that. And if there is one, let me know.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the Behind the Scenes tour. It is awesome. If you go on Living with the Land and you like it, Behind the Scenes is like, it's like $20, I think. And it's like an hour to an hour and a half tour, I think. And they show you a lot more in depth of the science behind what they're doing in the attraction, and they let you taste some of the plants that they're growing there. It's just really cool. If you like Living with the Land, definitely check out Behind the Scenes tour.
Yeah, I highly recommend it as well. It's so fascinating. I love it.
I have not done that yet, but I've heard really good things.
The tour. You've done Living with the Land. Okay, I was about to say,
yeah.
God.
No. I've done Living with the Land. I love Living with the Land. And, after you guys said that this was your attraction, I felt really bad for not picking it, just because it totally is, and I didn't even think of it.
I had to dig deep. I looked up a list of every attraction in every park, and I was going through thinking, what's the most unique? So it didn't just come to the top of my head. Okay, what's next?
So are we ready to fight over the next one? Because I feel like this is going to be controversy central.
Oh yeah,
most overrated attraction.
Really? I thought we'd all be on the same page. Everybody say 1, 2, 3.
Peter Pan's Flight. Are we not really doing that?
No.
That's a good one, though.
Oh, gosh. Do you want to explain yours first? Because I really didn't want to go with mine.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's different when you have a little kid. Maybe I feel differently in a few years. But it just boggles my mind that every time I walk by, the line is 50 minutes. It's everything else in Fantasyland. Small World, 15 minutes. Feel Our Magic, 10 minutes. Winnie the Pooh, 15 minutes. And then Peter Pan's Flight, 75 minutes. I mean, it's cool, but it's not that cool. It was cool in 1960, whenever they started it, but it's not that great anymore. And I'm sorry. I like Peter Pan. I don't love Peter Pan, so maybe I'm just a hater, but no. Do not understand. I will never... Well, okay. I probably will at some point get a fast pass for it when I have a little kid who wants to go on it, but I will never be happy to get the fast pass for it.
I kind of agree with that. I didn't pick that because I still ride that a lot. And that's one of those things that I think with the new queue, I kind of understand it and I'm okay with waiting a little bit. Trust me, not the wait that it has, but the new queue is pretty cool, and I would say that that's something at least to see in there. I picked, and this isn't like a super overrated attraction, like it doesn't like accumulate a lot of wait times, but I've seen it get a lot of praise and I don't understand. I picked Grand Fiesta Tour. I've seen it get a lot of like love, and it's weird because a lot of people are like, I'm not okay with putting characters in Epcot, and yet Grand Fiesta Tour is a thing.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, like it's weird because like I said, I don't ever see it get a really big wait times, but every now and then I'll see people on Twitter that are like, oh, Grand Fiesta Tour, or like they take pictures on Grand Fiesta Tour, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
I had no idea that it got so much praise. I've never heard anybody even mention it, to be honest.
I feel like it's a big thing in the Disney community. Some people are like, yeah, Grand Fiesta Tour.
It's like that little niche that it's like
the
people
cult
that
Disney
love,
thing.
Yeah, like it's got like a cult following in a weird way.
Huh.
But it, like I said, it's weird because everyone's like, oh, I don't want Frozen in Norway, or all that. And there was that big controversy, but no one said anything about Grand Fiesta Tour, which was definitely there way longer.
Yeah, I think that ride is kind of a cop-out. Like, it's just completely skippable to me. Mm-hmm. So that's not what I picked, but I totally agree with all of your sentiments. So I'm totally shocked that I thought for sure everybody was going to pick the same thing as me, but I'm going to be stereotypical and say Frozen Ever After, because it's like kind of like what Kirsten was saying with Peter Pan's Flight, is it consistently has insane wait times, and the ride is so short. I've only ridden it once, and it was because I had a fast pass, and after I got off of it, I was like, I would literally never wait in line for that.
I haven't ridden that either, so that's why I didn't pick it.
I rode it once. We rode it because we were there. So actually, this was almost my most likely to break down, because if everyone remembers, the first couple weeks it was open, it was always closed. And that's actually how I got on that ride. We were walking through Norway, and there was like, they had the cast members outside. They had it roped off and everything. And we were it was like super hot. So we were just like, let's sit down. We'll take a little break. And as soon as like we sat for like 10 minutes, a cast member came over and opened the line. So we like kind of walked right onto it. And they were letting people in that had fast passes and stuff like that. So they got in first, and we got to kind of like, go through the queue a little bit leisurely. But the reason I didn't put that one for my most overrated, while I do totally agree with you, Beth, is because the animatronics I thought were really cool. And I thought that that's like a really cool thing that we're moving forward with. Granted, I don't like the whole projection face thing. I think that's super creepy. But as far as like the Olaf, I refuse to believe that Olaf wasn't on that ride.
Olaf's not on the ride.
The animatronics are amazing.
Y'all are killing me. Olaf's the best part of that entire movie.
You're seriously, next time you go, you have to get a fast pass for that, just so you can see the Olaf animatronic. I
missed 2016, and it was like apparently the worst year to miss. I can't believe it.
That's okay. I'm going to miss 2017.
But yeah, I have the same problem with Frozen Ever After that I do with Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. It's just, it's not a bad attraction. It's just not one I would wait more than 30 minutes to ride on.
I totally agree with that.
Brian?
All right, so I'm going to stay in Epcot, but I am going back over to Soarin'. This I know. Look, I know.
Wait. New Soarin' or old Soarin'? Or both?
Okay, I'm gonna say both. And I actually, before I go on a little mini rant here, I have bullet points about this because I have strong opinions about this. Okay, I'll start by saying I don't think Soarin' is a awful attraction by any means, but I think we can all. Okay, so Frozen is obviously like the hot thing to do at Epcot right now, but I think Soarin', for pretty much ever since it's been put in Epcot, has been Epcot's like supposed to be the e-ticket attraction, the biggest thing they have there. And for it supposedly supposed to be that e-ticket top tier attraction, it's one that I look at and it kind of seems like Disney just kind of went, close enough when they were doing it. So the thing that kills me is that like the theming of it. The queue has no theming. You walk down a hallway basically with a couple TVs up giving you trivia questions, and until you get to the little pre-ride show, there is nothing. You are just standing in a line.
It is agonizing.
Yeah. Once you get on the ride vehicles are okay to me, but in my opinion, they don't really move enough to simulate flying. Not like Flight of Passage does. I'm not going to talk too much about Flight of Passage, but if you want to see a ride that really nails like the flying aspect on a screen projection ride, go on Flight of Passage. And the thing is that like with those ride vehicles, they take so long to load. Get everyone on there, make sure everyone's bags are out of the way, everyone's buckled in right, and then actually get you up there. I don't think it's worth like the waiting time it adds to the ride. And on top of that, the new video that they put on when they switched to the Soaring Around the World, the CGI is just, it's very jarring, and it takes you out of the immersion because, I mean, it's too obvious in some places. Like the whole Taj Mahal scene, like the whole thing. It's like you can tell before it was like, oh, landscape shot, and it's like bam, CGI rendering of the Taj Mahal. And the last thing.
Very sad about all this.
Well,
Just think you haven't ridden it yet, so when you ride it, you're gonna love it because we're just totally knocking it down.
And just to drive the final nail, the thing that kills me the most about this though is even after the update, we talked about it, the curve on the projection screen, it looks awful. And unless you were sitting in like the middle third of the attraction, it's so warped that like it kills the immersion. So yeah, I guess that's the end of my rant, but that's why I think Soarin' is the most overrated.
Well, I love Soarin', but I do have to say the one thing that takes me out, ruins my suspension of disbelief every time, is if you're in the second and third row, the feet hanging above you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
they should have made the building, 10 feet taller and put more space in between them, because that drives me bananas. The cast members probably hate me, but I every time will be like, can I wait until I can get in the front row? Just because I don't want the feet. I hate the feet.
You know, the
But
feet don't bother me. That's the weird thing. Like that doesn't take me out of it. The fact that if I'm in row 1 or 3, I can look up or down and see the edge of the screen. Like, how hard would it have been to just wrap it a little bit back?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, the
like,
last time I went on Soarin', actually, I was in the bottom row, and I literally had the last seat on the end, and it was unwatchable. It was awful.
I've heard there's one sweet spot on like the new one where you can look at it in just an angle and it doesn't like totally warp the lines as much. But that CGI is kind of like hard to pass up. Anyway, before we all start fighting about Soarin', the next thing that we had was best cost plus thing to do at Walt Disney World. So like extras, I believe, was how I interpreted this one.
Yeah,
like,
so I was
ticket add-ons?
Came up with this. So I guess I was just trying to think something that's not included with your theme park admission, something that you have to pay extra to do.
So my choice was right alongside with that. My best cost thing, like my extra add-on, I would say is Not So Scary Halloween Party. I've done both the Halloween party and the Christmas party, and I believe significantly the cost of a ticket for Not So Scary is way better for what you get than the Christmas party. I mean, just for me personally, I know a lot of people that wouldn't be worth it for, just because, like, you're not into character meet and greets, or, you don't really want to go around and do the trick-or-treat trails and stuff like that. But I totally believe that this is, like, way worth the extra add-on price. There's rare characters that you'll never get the chance to meet at those parties. Like I said, there's a trick-or-treating trail, so they give you a bag when you walk in, and you can walk around to different stations, and it takes like 5 seconds to go up and get a handful of candy. And then the wait times are cut down significantly because, you're in the park when there's not a lot of people there. So I really like that. The times that I have done that, we went in at, like, we didn't even buy a ticket for Magic Kingdom that day. We would just buy the party ticket. And I believe the last one we went to, it was actually cheaper to just do that. They let you in at 4 o'clock, so you get in, midday, and then you're there till like 12, 1 o'clock at night. Totally worth it.
I've never done that, but we are going this year.
Totally worth it. Plus, you get to dress up.
Yeah, I know. I already have my Belle costume from China that I have to get altered. But I'm really
awesome.
excited to take Eli, so.
I also love Not So Scary, and I think you're really hitting the nail on the head. It's totally worth the extra money, especially when you're factoring in the fact, like you said, you get in at 4 o'clock and don't have to have a park ticket, but candy corn soft serve.
Oh, so
number
good.
one.
There's so many good treats there too. Like I can go on and on about how many different things are like exclusive just to the parties that are so worth it. And plus, like there's different souvenir mugs and stuff like that. And like I'm a sucker for Disney merch. I know we all are, but like we went around and we did all of the exclusive things that come in. Like souvenir mugs and stuff like that. I still have the poison apple mug sitting on my desk, like right next to me, actually. It's just great. I love the Halloween party. We actually did the Christmas one first a couple of years ago. And, like, it was cool and all, but I wasn't so sold on the parties. And then, I got the chance to go to Not So Scary, and everyone was like, you know what, just do it. And I pulled the trigger, I did it, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. If you're a fan of parades, I don't know how many of you are, but Boo to You is my favorite parade, hands down. It doesn't even hold a torch to any of the other parades.
I would also like to say that the Hocus Pocus Villain Spectacular is like my favorite stage show at Disney. It's 100% worth it just for that, in my opinion.
I could keep going on, but you guys should probably cut me off.
Okay, well, while I think Not So Scary is an amazing choice, my favorite Cost Plus thing was the Keys to the Kingdom tour. And it's a little bit pricey, but I would say it's 100% worth it, the experience that you get, because it's I don't know if any of you guys have done it, but it's a 5-hour tour. You get lunch included at Columbia Harbor House, and you have, in my experience, the most amazing tour guide that would humor every nerdy question that I had and had an answer for everything. And just to top it all off, getting to go into the Utilidors as a common person, not a cast member, is like bucket list check. So I would highly recommend that to anybody. That one, unfortunately, you do have to have park admission to go, but they let you out right before Festival of Fantasy. So it's like, you're missing out on those lower crowds in the morning, but you also get to walk on to, I believe it was 3 attractions. I don't know if it changes or if it's the same every time, but we got to walk on to Haunted Mansion, Jungle Cruise, and something else that I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure there was a third one. This was a few years ago, but I've been just dying to go back and do it again because you have to be at least 16 to do it, so it's great that you have a tour full of not necessarily adults, but you don't have little kids running around and babies crying, and since they do take you behind the scenes, they don't want to ruin the magic for like a small child, so I totally understand why they do it. But I don't want to spoil anything, but I had such a great experience on that tour.
For me, I picked one that, to be honest, I think they still do this. I'm not completely sure though, so if they don't, please correct me. But the learning to surf thing at Typhoon Lagoon is really, really cool. I did this probably, somewhere between 10 to 15 years ago. And last I heard they were still doing it, but like I said, I may be wrong. But it's really cool. You get there early before the park opens, and it's really, really small. I'm wanting to say there was maybe 6 or 8 people in my group when I did it, and it's really cool. They just take you 2 at a time out into the wave pool at Typhoon Lagoon and teach you how to surf. It's been a while, so I don't remember exactly how long you got to stay out there, but it was really cool. It was a really unique experience, and it was a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome. I've actually never been to the water parks.
I haven't either.
Oh, they're awesome. Y'all should go. I like Blizzard Beach theming better, but the wave pool in Typhoon is the best thing ever. So I actually chose something that I have not done. So all 4 of these things that we've talked about, I have never done. But I really want to do this, and I have it on good authority, aka my brother and my dad, that it's awesome. Scuba diving in Epcot. They thought it was amazing. I remember whenever they came to visit me on my college program, I tried to set up everything so my dad would have a lot of fun and love it and want to come back every year, which did not happen. But he did have a lot of fun doing this. And it's especially fun for, I think, people who like kids. My dad loves little kids. And so you get to go, in the aquarium and you get to scuba over to Coral Reef Restaurant and, all the kids in the restaurant are like, oh my God. So he really had a blast with that. And I think you learn a lot too. And just seeing, that giant aquarium, I mean, it's huge. So they really loved it, and I want to do it sometime, but I didn't have my scuba license then, so.
I'm literally getting my scuba license this month so that I can do that at some point.
Yeah, I want to get mine so bad. I need to get it because we do scuba dive a lot, but I've just always done the adventure dives.
There's also, I don't know if this is the same thing, but there's a tour that goes through the Seas Pavilion, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's similar, and they have like a dolphin experience one also, and I think they have a snuba one maybe where you don't have to be licensed.
I don't think you have to be licensed for the tour because one of my Disney regrets is that the last trip that we went on with my whole family, my aunt actually paid for 2 spots, one for my cousin and then one for whoever else wanted to go with them. And I was invited, but we were there on such a short trip that I had so many other things I wanted to do. And I bailed out. And I wish that I would have done it because the pictures that they got look so cool. Like, they have so many good things to say about it, but I didn't get to experience it. So that's my own fault, but still.
Bummer.
Okay, last one.
Last one was cast member roles we'd most like to have. I totally tossed this up a couple times between my final choice and PhotoPass photographer. I way backed out on PhotoPass photographer when it dawned on me that I'd have to stand outside with a ton of camera equipment in the heat, and that would just not be ideal for me.
Rain. Well, I guess they pack it up, but still, you have to wear like a jacket. I've seen the PhotoPass people.
Yeah, no, either way, that's too much for me to wear. But my choice was Haunted Mansion cast member at any point in the ride. I just feel like they're the ones that have the most fun. Every time I'm there, they're always the ones that are like the most involved with the guests, especially in the stretching room. I've seen it so many times that like when you're in that room and the lights go out, the cast member will move to like someone that either has the first time button or like doesn't expect the lights to come back on as like the way they do, and they'll just stand there right next to them, and it freaks them out every time. I just feel like they have like so much fun, and it's my favorite attraction, so I'm kind of biased.
That's a really good pick. I also was thinking about PhotoPass, and ultimately, if I settled on if I decided to do photography in Disney World, I would want to do event photography.
That's a good one.
So, like the weddings or like the special events, and they do cast member events and stuff like that. Like they had the Great Movie Ride event recently. I think that would be really cool, but I'm certain that I'm sure the wedding photographers are like exclusively like in their own genre, but I'm sure that the people doing the other events are probably just that's a shift for them. So I know that this isn't something that you make a living off of, but I would love to be one of the characters that, not a face character, the fuzzies or whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
And I never really thought I would say that, but I have a friend who is a stormtrooper, but he used to be Tigger, and I went over to his apartment on my last trip, and he was showing me all these little notes and drawings and that the kids will draw and give to him, and like was telling me the cutest stories about how much fun it is and how adorable it is. And I just think that if that was something that you could make a living off of, that would be a really cool role to have.
Side note, while this is not, I've never worked for Disney, I can talk about this now. I worked for Toys R Us for a very long time, and I got to do Jeffrey a couple times, and while it's not the same as like a Disney character, just the reactions to kids seeing a character that large and that lifelike is incredible. And it makes a really crappy job totally worth it. But I can only imagine how cool it is to be one of those for characters, and then it's like that's a character that kids see all the time on TV and movies. So I totally agree with that. Very good pick.
One of my roommates from my program was friends with Minnie, Mickey, all the people in that height range, and she loved it. She had a blast. I've always been like terrified of Santa and clowns and stuff, so I really don't like ever meeting fur characters. I would only ever go when I knew that my friend was going to be there, and I would, tell the people, hey, I'm waiting for such and such, and I would go meet that Mickey only, or that Minnie or whoever. But yeah, she had a blast. I've only heard good things from her.
Brian?
Cool. So, yeah, I guess along kind of same lines is doing something where you really get to interact with the guests. I picked being a Jungle Cruise skipper.
That's such a good one.
Such a good one.
I love the Jungle Cruise, and I love all of the silly puns on it. And anytime you go, like, I've had better cast members or better skippers than other times, but they are always having a blast when they do it, and it really does. It seems like something to be so much fun. You get to joke around. I love corny puns, so I think it would just be.
Side note, in that same vein, I think I would also really like to be a bartender at Trader Sam's.
That would be very cool.
That place is a blast.
I feel like I'm the only person that probably hasn't been there.
You have to go.
Like, deeply regret it.
You should go.
Every time that we've gone, it just hasn't fit into the schedule, and I'm just like, I really need to go, but no one else understands.
Yeah. Brian, my husband, I was reading all these to him, and his choice was Jungle Cruise Skipper, too.
Really?
He loves that ride. Yes.
Yep.
That's
I am
what he's
so
going to
mad
do
that I
when he
didn't think of that.
retires.
Me too.
So I
yeah.
went way off track. I didn't pick a role in the park, but I can. What I originally put was Imagineering. I would love to do show writing for the Imagineering. Actually, if they wanted me to clean the floors with the toothbrush, I would do that too. Anything, but I'm just obsessed with it. But that's like a billion people. So if we're talking about in-park roles, it's hard to decide. I would want to say face character because I'm just a stereotypical girl, but I think I would honestly go back to being a vacation planner. It was so fun just to actually help people, and people come. Honestly, I don't know why people don't do research when you have Google, and it's so easy to figure out everything beforehand. But, they would come for one day, and they have no idea what to do, and, they say, what should we do? And it's like, well, how many people do you have with you? How old are your kids? Do you want to do thrill rides or do you want to do slow rides? And just help them and, recommend your own tips. Like, well, I would go here first, and, if you want lunch nearby, then you should eat this restaurant. Just to make sure that they have a better experience. I feel like when people go to Disney and they don't have a good time, it's because they don't do it right. Maybe that's like snobby of me, but I feel like when people go and they do it right and they plan it out, and maybe some people just don't like to plan their trips, but when you do it and you know kind of where to go and the trip tips and tricks and fast pass and all that, you can't not enjoy yourself. So I liked helping people have a better vacation. So at the end of the day, they're leaving saying, I want to come back, not this was terrible.
That does sound really awesome because I feel like I'm constantly planning my next trip, and to be able to do that for somebody else, especially when I don't have a trip to be planning, That would be really fun.
Yeah, I still do it kind of on the side. My friends will say, hey, I have a friend going to Disney World, and I told them that you were a vacation planner. And I'm like, yeah, just give them my email address and tell them to email me, and I'll plan everything. I'll do as much or as little as they want, you know. So I've planned, like, really detailed trips for people and been like, okay, so tomorrow you need to make your dining reservations. And I've also just told people, okay, well, I would do your days, you know, first day, second day, third day, whatever. So.
Well, and to kind of like your point about people ruining their vacations with not planning, research. You don't have to plan every second of your trip, and that's something that I've tried to tell everyone. Like, my aunt and uncle took my little cousin for the first time, like, a year ago, maybe, and they planned their trip to the T because that's what their travel agent told them to do. They told them there's so much stuff that you have to do. If you want to do everything, you got to plan it. And one of the things they came back that they said was, like, we feel rushed because there's just so much to do. And I may be the exception to that rule, where when I go to Disney, I know what I want to do. I don't plan out every second. So there's definitely, like, a fine line between, like, plan everything and just know what you want to do.
I'm the kind of person that I go on touring plans and I do plan every single second, but I also have the, you know, knowledge and wisdom to be like, okay, this isn't realistically going to happen. So this is like my best case scenario, but I also realize that it's super important to let things be spontaneous, because that's how magic actually happens.
Right.
I have a spreadsheet with the park hours for every park, the extra magic hours, the crowd levels, green, yellow, red, the what time the night shows are, and I have a spreadsheet for each day with all of our reservation numbers, and I actually have a dining plan spreadsheet where you do the math and figure out if it's better to get the dining plan or to pay out of pocket for your food. So I definitely like to plan. But I realize I'll put in there, like, okay, so 2 hours and try to get XXX done. So it's planned to a T, but I realize that it's not all going to happen like that also.
Right, and I think that's like the fine line to hit is, like, okay, I know I want to be on, like, Spaceship Earth by 12 o'clock or whatever, just as a random throw-out ride at a random time. And then, like, if you hit that window, you hit it, you know that that's where you want to go, that's what you want to do. But if you're like, okay, I have to be here at 12:15, and then at 12:30 I have to run over to this ride, because then things just start to kind of get unrealistic, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And stressful.
Yes, very stressful.
I always suggest to people to plan what you can, and really the only thing you can set up are your 3 fast passes, and then I suggest, if you really want to, do 1 ADR per day, because after that, if you are set that you're going to get on, after your fast passes are done, you're going to get on this ride, and then this ride, and then this ride, and one of those ends up having a longer wait time, and that messes up the stuff downstream from that. You know, people get frustrated with it. They feel like, oh, I missed out on all this stuff. When really, you know, if you kind of go in with more realistic expectations, you might end up doing more than you were planning and feel like, oh, hey, we got to do even more. But I just feel like the over planning really sets people up to get frustrated. And
Definitely.
Well, and, like, the other side of that is, like, there are certain things that you have to plan. So your ADRs, your fast passes and stuff like that. Like, obviously you don't have to do the fast pass system, but if there's rides that you want to go on that have hour-plus waits, like, you have to fast pass that. And then ADRs, like, you're never going to get a walk-up to some of the restaurants that people want to go to. I mean, you might, but you're going to be waiting a really long time. So that's a very good, I think, advice to give someone, is just plan what you can.
I think the really fortunate thing about people like us is that we don't have to stress about the schedule as much because we know we'll be back.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's also
that
true.
helps so much.
So I can't imagine how stressful it is for someone who this is their once in a lifetime trip. I have to get every single thing that I want to get done.
yeah, I don't think about that much. Don't listen to my opinion, because I go like every 2 weeks. So just throw what I'm saying out the window, because I know that doesn't apply to most people.
Before we wrap the show up and continue talking about vacation planning, has anyone taken someone for the first time? Like, I'm sure all of you have.
I took my grandma and my great grandma, and it was amazing.
Like, isn't it the best thing ever when you're just like, so my girlfriend before she met me, like, had never been to Disney. And like within the first couple months we were planning our trip. So I was like, okay, you know, we're going to do this, and this, and this is like the things that you're going to want to do. And she was really overwhelmed because there's a lot of things to plan. But then like when you get there and you're like, okay, we've only planned out our dinner reservations and our fast passes. That's like the extent of our trip. We're just going to wing everything else. Like just the reaction of bringing someone for the first time and then they're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. That's just like my favorite thing about Disney.
I don't know if I've ever taken someone for like the very first time, but I went when I graduated from college. My graduation trip was to Disney, and I went with my mom, my stepdad, and my brother, and none of them had really ever been. They hadn't been in like 15 years or something. So it was like kind of the first time for them, and the whole, like, every time it's brought up, they always talk about how nice it was to have me there because it felt like they had a tour guide. Felt like they could just follow the leader and not have to worry about anything.
Anyway, anyone have some final thoughts on this before we wrap it up? Because we're pushing the time limit here.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's just so hard to stop talking about Disney.
It is. I think this is the hardest part about doing this show. And that's going to do it for us today, folks. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Station 71 podcast. Be sure to find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere where you can find your podcasts, and subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. Be sure to like us on Facebook. We're on Facebook at Station 71 Pod, Twitter at Station 71 Pod, and Instagram at Station 71 Podcast. We hope you enjoyed your ride, and we'll see you real soon.